welcome. Today we're talking FC Dallas as the Designated Pundits cover each of the Major League Soccer teams, 29 in total, in our preseason preview series. And I'm very happy today to be joined by Jose Tellez as we talk about FC Dallas. Now, Jose is one of the big guys behind goals.tv, so I'm really happy to be working with him today. Jose, how you doing?
I'm good, Bob. Good. Thanks again for inviting me on. I talk a lot of footy on the internet in general, but as you know very well, I'm very passionate about Major League Soccer, specifically FC Dallas. It's kind of hard thing to say sometimes when we haven't won a trophy in the 30 plus years of existence that we've had as a club, but nonetheless, there are more than a few of us adamant fans out there. So excited to talk shop ahead of this 2024 season.
Absolutely. And Texas has been a great place for soccer, with the incoming Austin rivalry. You guys got the Copa Tejas there. Houston, a lot of soccer being played. A lot of it's not always being played well, but we're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly today. So thank you, Jose, for being there. Tell us where we can find your work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So first and foremost, I think most of it at this point in time, just 'cause I think it fuels a lot of the mission that we're about here at goals.tv, is on the Goals TV YouTube channel. I would say any show that I'm involved with, any one of the dozens of content creators that we work with to produce Major League Soccer content or really anything North American soccer related, head to Goals TV YouTube channel. A great place, if not the Goals TV platform, goals.tv itself. So outside of that, on socials, my handle, it's Bromigo. It's been that way for 15 years, I want to say. Haven't changed it one bit. If you're looking for any hot takes and opinions, you can find them there.
Love it. Let's get into FC Dallas. Let's jump about what they did last season, because 2023 was a very interesting season. 11-13-10 record. They had 41 goals and 37 allowed, which gave them a +4 goal differential. They ended 7th in the Western Conference, right around that half place mark, and they played Seattle in the first leg of the playoffs. Maybe a year to forget, but there were some highlights that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Let's talk about 2023.
Yeah. 2023 is an interesting year. Coming off of the back of 2022, where most fans would argue that FC Dallas kind of did what it always does collectively as an organization. We're a perennial, to an extent, playoff team, but the ambition is always criticized and not going further than that. We bounced out of playoffs in the second round. 2023 was more of the same, I would say, with worse luck on the injury front. I think whether it was at any point throughout the season, at any point throughout MLS regular season, Leagues Cup, whatever it may have been, we were dealing with Paxton Pomacall injuries, Paul Arriola, Jesus Ferreira taking off to Gold Cup, losing Emma Tomasi, losing Giovanni Jesus. It was just a very, very weird year. So much so that I'm almost tempted to call it somewhat of an anomaly. I think when you look at the amount of draws specifically that we had last season that tops either the win or loss category, it just shows you how many points were left on the table, how much there was left to be desired when it comes to what our attack looked like. And specifically when we stacked up against playoff teams, I always felt like we were lacking on that front. All in all, it's hard to be disappointed per se with how 2023 went, because you almost want to lean on any one of the excuses that I just kind of mentioned. But at the same time, right, there were some interesting things that took place last season. Some players did reveal themselves as diamonds in the rough, so to speak. I think of Bernie Kamungo automatically, him getting now, U23 USMNT shouts, and Tafari kind of revealing himself as a center back. That may be the future at that position for us. And even in a down season, Jesus Ferreira finding a way to still contribute double-digit goal contributions. And he wasn't 2022, but he was still, one of the front runners in Major League Soccer on that front. So all in all, plenty left on the table for us to go after. And I think it's fair for FC Dallas fans to be somewhat disappointed, But equally, I think considering that we didn't lose any pieces in 2023 heading into now and 2024, there's a lot to be excited about ahead of the new season.
There's a lot to grow, and one of the strategies I think is underrated in Major League Soccer is kind of what St. Louis City did last year. Throw it all out on the table. If you have a 40% chance to throw it all out there and win a game instead of drawing, you're going to make up the points, because that 40% is, above the 33% chance of 3-1 for points on a win to a draw. It's kind of like almost like a gambling mentality that, like, if you can win back your percentage of investment, it doesn't matter how long the odds are, you should play it every time. And that's what St. Louis City did. 17 wins, 5 draws, 12 losses. 12 losses, that's as high as any team in the Western Conference. And you guys were doing that. You were matching them throughout the beginning of the summer. Then there comes this stretch, the beginning of September. You guys go 1 win, 7 draws, and 0 losses. And that takes you up to the playoffs. So right there, if you could have just 2 games, if you could have won 2 of those games, you could have been the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. So that is, I guess, something I'm going to look up to. But what happened in September? Well, we had schedule congestion. We had international breaks, and that's where Dallas, to me, kind of fell apart, especially knowing that you guys have guys like Jesus Ferreira who are going to be playing a lot of matches in that span. So let's move on and take a look at who you're few more facts. Again, 2-7-1 their final 10 games, lots of drop points. You had back-to-back wins only 2 times last season. That is the beginning of April and the beginning of May. That's not a winning condition there. And you were 3rd place in Copa Tejas by goals scored. So I think you tied Houston for 2nd place, with Austin running away with it, and then they beat you in like goal differential or something like that. So definitely a lot of room where you guys are going to want to improve for next season. You want to win those tiebreakers, put more goals in the back of the net, stuff like that. So, I think that there are a lot of positives to take from your last season if you can turn it around. That's just always the question.
Yeah, I think, here's a couple points I think I want to make about last season, right? When you look at that stretch at a high level, you look at the record and how many points were left on the board for us, it doesn't look great. I won't argue that point at all. But one thing I will quickly follow up on that is that 8 of those games were against top playoff teams, right? We're talking Seattle, Atlanta, Columbus, Philadelphia, Houston. These were all teams that were able to win down the stretch and do it when it mattered most, and get beyond that first round of playoffs, which is where I believe average teams really live. And that includes FC Dallas last season. So I think, I want to be fair of the players that we had at those moments in time, and maybe why those results didn't go our way. You wonder if we had those matches earlier in the season when we were a little more informed, could we have taken more points away from 2023? I think so. But again, we can't control the schedule. The schedule is what it is. At the same time, another reason I think I'm a little more optimistic heading into this season is something you kind of just cited there, Bob. The amount of games we had last season, I don't expect us to have this season, at least when you compare them to the St. Louis's, the Houstons of the world. They're going to have to deal with things like Champions League, right? They're going to have, or Champions Cup now, as it's called. They're going to have to deal with even if it's 1, 2, or 3 more fixtures, more matches, they're going to have to accommodate those matches in a big way. Dallas is kind of getting a chance to take a step back a little bit off of a year where we were the 2nd best defense in Major League Soccer, or at least in the Western Conference in Major League Soccer. I think 3rd overall in the entire league. If we can build on that last season, which I think was the biggest, brightest, shining spot across our entire team, was our defense. A somewhat inexperienced defense led by Tafari, by Sebastian Ibeaga, who was playing in the USL not very long ago. Sam Junka, who was also kind of this Swiss Army knife, very versatile player, who kind of could play anywhere on that back line, but it was also, again, playing in the USL for San Antonio FC not long ago. We're finding a way to make the pieces that we have very valuable and very worthwhile for us, and I'm encouraged by that. But where we lacked all of the sharpness, if you will, was up front. If Ferreira wasn't firing for whatever reason, there is the criticism that we didn't have the pieces to pick up the offense and make sure that we can kind of keep, gaining points and gaining momentum as we got closer to playoffs. That was always my biggest criticism. Paul Arriola, Alan Velasco, both of them somewhat down seasons. And when we're talking about a U22 initiative player, we're talking about a DP player in Arriola. To have the seasons that they had in 2023, I expect them to bounce back in a big way. But even if they don't, it's still going to be, I imagine, a positive based on what we saw last season. So there's a lot to be encouraged by, a lot of context to wrap around what happened in 2023. But nonetheless, there definitely are massive room for improvement.
Absolutely. When you look at this team in terms of home field advantage, you guys didn't really have very much of one last year. Out of 29 teams, you were ranked 21st in home field advantage, 1.72 points per game at home. It's a little bit below league average, 0.95 points per game on the road. It's actually pretty good. So why do you think that Dallas wasn't able to take what is usually a huge advantage and not capitalize? Was it because, the summer window wasn't as hot and steamy at home as it could have been? Was it because of those distractions? Why? And do you think that it gets better this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the latter one, does it get better this year? I don't really know. I think Dallas has often, when you compare it to the Copa Tejas rivals that we have, right, Houston and Austin, that has been the one criticism of Dallas over time, is that the market itself doesn't create this fortress at Toyota Stadium that is going to make it difficult for opponents to come here and really give us that home field advantage. It almost feels sometimes like it's a neutral site. Despite the fact that, we sell out that 19,000 stadium more often than not. So I don't want to come on the show and necessarily critique the fans per se, but I would say of the three fan bases, right, there's probably a slight gap and variance between the aura of Toyota Stadium versus going to Shell Energy, going to the Q2 for whatever reason, right? Now, I was impressed with how well we performed on the road. It actually made me feel very encouraged heading into playoffs, right? Where I knew that we were going to get maybe one single home match, and that's it, even if we advanced, because we were the 7th seed. So I felt encouraged about the postseason for that matter, but I don't know if there's a way to improve what we did. I will say this, the biggest improvement that we could have made positionally, we went out and reinforced there. And you can argue it was equally a marketing move to create the home field advantage we don't yet have. The signing of Petar Musa, I think just fans hearing that we went out, purchased someone as a record signing for the club, someone who's in their prime, has European experience, Champions League experience, coming to this league, coming to this club, should, I think, entice, the fans to truly build something that maybe our rivals are doing slightly better than us at this moment in time. But we won't really know until opening day. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to be as fervent as ever. And we'll be able to see how much we've improved on the home field advantage front.
Yeah, and you talk about home field advantage. The Seattle Sounders, you're one of the only playoff teams to go all 3 matches in the first round of the playoffs. And in that, the home team won each and every match. You guys did eventually fall to the Seattle Sounders 2 games to 1 there. Let's look at the contributors here. Jesus Ferreira, 13 goals, 4 assists. Jadir Obrian, 7 goals, 3 assists. You had Kumungo, 6 goals, 1 assist. Velasco, 4 goals, 2 assists. And then it's just kind of all the same. Burgess, 3 goals, 3 assists. Paul Arriola, 3 goals, 4 assists. Marco Farfan, 1 goal, 3 assists. It's top heavy.
Very top.
It's top heavy. And the good news is I could have gone with another 5 players who scored 1, 2, or 3 goals here on the graphic. I could have literally listed completely down the sheet. But again, we're looking really top heavy. Jesus Ferreira or bust. And then you guys went out and you picked up a forward this offseason. Really, really quickly, MVP.
MVP, just out of sheer, production, right? And it was a down season for him, but Ferreira, I think, it's, and I would say if I had to be very, remove production from it and just on the eye test, who really kind of offered the most, I would say equally Ferreira and Tafari in the back, having some offensive contribution while being a fantastic passer of the ball, bailing us out of more than a few situations. You can also make that argument for Martin Boss at keeper for that matter. But I think production included, you have to look at Ferreira. Our offense is solely centered around him. We had to find a way to release him of some of that pressure. I think that's why we have players on the pitch like Ariola and Velasco. But 2023 they had down seasons, and it really is what it is on that front. We're hoping that they can bounce back in a big way in 2024.
Love it. Let's turn the page. Enough of this 2023 stuff. Let's look ahead to 2024, and we're going to start with some transfers. You guys were pretty busy in the early market here. Brought in Peter Musa. Let's talk about what that piece is going to add, because I think that this is going to be the key here, having a second offensive option.
Yeah, man, I can't tell you. I can't begin to explain how excited I'm about Petar Musa. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, the Portuguese Super League is one that I was massively paying attention to prior to his arrival. But you can't ignore the fact that one of the biggest criticisms of FC Dallas up to this point is that we have a model, and it's the model from the youth all the way to the first team of profitability more than anything else, right? We don't really go out and spend a ton of money unless we make a big sale. We kind of rely upon academy products, homegrown products to kind of get us over the line. And that's why we're simply a consistent playoff team, but nothing more than that up to this point. That's been the argument. And I think the Petar Musa signing directly combats that. I think we now have a striker that is not only able to be the clinical finisher that it might be a hot take that I believe Ferreira isn't. I think as many goal contributions as he has, I don't believe he's playing his ideal position. I think he is more of a center forward playmaker who understands how to find others in space and create opportunities for them. We've seen it at FC Dallas. We've seen it also at times with the U.S. men's national team. He's able to contribute in other ways outside of goals. I think if we had a truly lethal finisher in front of him, the opportunities could virtually be endless. And so I think, from my perspective, Petar Musa is a clinical finisher. He is versatile. He can finish with his head, being 6'3", finishing in the air, finishing. That definitely helps. Ferreira's 5'8". So you imagine how many opportunities we eliminate from our attack just by having him up front versus someone like Musa. But then watching what he's done in Portugal, watching what he's done in the Champions League, be able to finish with his heel, his foot, his head, whatever it may be, and bringing him to this league in his prime, I've been very vocal about the fact that this is a type of signing that is not just great for FC Dallas, but it is great for Major League Soccer. MLS needs to be prioritizing signings like Petar Musa, someone who's in their prime, who's playing in some of these leagues abroad. You may not have heard his name very much, but he offers a level of technical ability that's going to raise the profile of the league. And I think that there are other signings that I could highlight, but this is an FC Dallas specific episode. So I'm very excited for Musa. If I had to predict really what he's going to produce in 2024, I think double-digit goal contributions, in my opinion, should be the floor. I think he's someone who is going to take some of the pressure off Ferreira, and that is massively needed.
The comparison I'm hearing around Major League Soccer is like Giacomakis on Atlanta United. And if that's the case, 16 goals should be what you're looking at here. I'm very interested to see how he interacts with Jesus Ferreira, if they eat away from each other's goals or if they can both produce together. That's always the question with these attacking tandems here. You also brought in Enes Sally, Omar Gonzalez. That's going to be a good defensive depth piece for you if he has anything left in the tank. And then Patrickson Delgado. Anyone else here we want to talk about?
No, I think the biggest, I would say the piece that we got the most flack for in this offseason up to this point. I mean, Enes Sali is a Romanian wonder kid. We have yet to see what he can really do at a first team level. I'm not going to make any predictions about him. He's a winger that I expect to see some flashes in the pan. But with Omar Gonzalez, him, this being a homecoming for him, right? He went to Skyline High School in Dallas before, going to eventually to other parts of the country as part of his career. But we didn't really have that depth piece last season, right? I think we had to make do between Ibeaga, between Tafari. We had, Martinez now who's moved on from Dallas, who didn't contribute a ton in the back last year due to injuries and other parts of his game that just weren't up to snuff from Nico Estevez's perspective. But and I will say this: while we've added Omar Gonzalez, and he's a great depth piece with some playoff experience as recently as last season with the Revs, we still need more. I still think that we're a good team that's missing key pieces. We need to, if I had to prioritize a signing heading into whether it's now in the winter or even in the summer to reinforce us, would be another center back. I think someone who's going to maybe just raise the floor of our defense. We were, like I said, top 2 in the West last season, but there is no guarantee that we're going to produce the exact same way in 2024. Just someone who's going to offer us, a little more depth for if for whatever reason we catch another injury bug.
Great. And the players outgoing, we have Jader, Obrian, Facundo Quignon, and Jose Antonio Martinez. Which one of those it hurts the most?
For obvious reasons, Yader Obrian going to Austin FC hurts. Like for obvious reasons, meaning he's going to a rival. To see him do an interview, right, where he's like, "Oh, when I got the call from Austin, I immediately jumped at it, and he was very excited, almost proud to be targeted by that club as a rival." Didn't sit the best with me as an FC Dallas fan, but I understand. I think Obrian is probably coming off of one of the better seasons he had with Dallas. I think he was here for 3 or 4 seasons. He's someone that I think was approaching his ceiling is kind of like double-digit goal contributions, right at around 10, maybe 11 tops, goals and assists combined. I think he offers some pace. His finishing isn't the most clinical. But when we had injuries up front last season, whether it was Ferreira, whether it was Arriola going down, Velasco in the playoffs, Obrian was someone who kind of dragged us over the line a little bit, right? Created the goals that we needed to have. We weren't truly a high-octane offense team to begin with. So will I miss him? Yes, but it hurts more that he's going to Austin FC. Had he gone to just another team we don't have a rivalry with, it probably would have felt like he's just doing what's best for his career. I think the person I will personally miss most because of their ability will be Facu Quignon. I think Quignon he's aging, great defensive man. I think he paired pretty well with Pamecol. He took over for Pamecol when he was injured. When we signed Iaramendi, they both play with the ball very well, move the ball throughout the midfield well, but I think we don't need 2 players of the same profile exactly, and that's kind of what that was. Iaramendi offers a little bit more even at his age, mid-30s, and that's why I think we opted to stick with him versus riding it out with Quignon. And Quignon's an MLS level player. He's going to find a way to keep his career going, and I'm happy for him. But I did like having him in our side. I think I'm going to miss him the most.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the X's and O's, positioning, tactics, coaching. I want to know a little bit about play style, coaching, formations. What should we expect to see week in and week out from this FC Dallas squad?
Well, I think if you watched us in preseason, which has been a roller coaster in terms of like where to fit personnel, what formation we're going to run, I think Nico Estevez is going to experiment more with Dallas this season than he ever has. I think we've seen a very pragmatic approach from him up to this point. But now with the pieces that he has offensively, with the pieces that he's able to rotate in midfield, some people are calling it this 5-2-2-1, this very unique formation. I'm calling it just Nico's version of a 3-4-3. I think he wants to be able to run with 3 very quick, very speedy, very athletic defenders, and allow the likes of Tumasi, Dante Sealy, Endely to run up and down those flanks as outside backs and contribute more to the attack moving forward. I think a lot of fans were critical of the 4-3-3 we ran last season because it felt very counter-attack heavy. It was almost boring to watch. We would kind of sit back, soak up a little bit of pressure. We were pretty good defensively, and then we try to let a long ball release Velasco or release Arriola and try to find Ferreira in space. But now that I think Ferreira can take a back seat to Pitar Musa, can get more involved in the build-up play, he won't have to be a striker that gets dragged into midfield, which limits our offensive chances. I think it just allows Nico to now play with the formation quite a bit and really be unpredictable, which I think was a big criticism of Dallas last season. So 5-2-2-1 or a 3-4-3, however you see it, with Pamecol and Iaramendi controlling much of what happens in the midfield and allowing. I know we have currently Arriola at the top of that depth chart because Velasco's injured and he's going to be nursing back to health pretty soon, or relatively soon. I think the ideal 3 up top is going to be, when they're healthy, Musa, Ferreira, Velasco. I think the pace Velasco offers combined with Ferreira's playmaking ability and the clinical nature of Pitar Musa up front should prove to be very lethal.
Got some comments here from Ryan, who says, got to give a shout out to Mendy. If he's fit all season, he's an MLS first team level guy. I believe that's true, but I think also the position he plays, for that to happen, you got to get recognized to be on a really good winning team. Guys who play like that, and he throws a comparison, João Paulo type game controller, yes, but it's like a quarterback. You're tied to the success of your team. So I think he gets overlooked if Dallas is sitting at 500 again next season.
I agree. And one of the best abilities of Mendy is his ability to utilize the long ball, not just how, he doesn't just hoof it downfield per se, right? He's able to actually pinpoint attackers moving forward and give them the service they need. And I've always been critical of that part from Dallas's perspective as well, right? Whether it's Farfan, sprinting down the left side and getting a cross in. And I'll say he's one of our better kind of playmakers down the flank. We haven't had somebody who's fantastic with service through the air, and maybe that's been because the players getting on the end of that service just aren't the most athletic specimens out there, right? Again, Ferreira being 5'8", Velasco not being extremely great in the air, Ariola being even shorter than that. It's just we don't really have anyone up front that we can target. And now that we have a target striker, you have to imagine that Mendy is going to be kind of licking his chops at the opportunity to kind of level up his assists, so to speak. But with all of
it opens up your wing play a little bit. And if you look
here,
if you look at the starting lineup that we have, as opposed to what we would have played at the beginning of last season, you have three guys narrow up top as to where you would have had, a wider formation, and this is going to allow, I guess, the fullbacks or whatever you call them, midfield, wing backs, whatever, to get up the field in those situations. So we've talked about the three up top. Musa, Ferreira, you like him a little bit further behind, providing a little more service, more of a support guy than a target man. And, we see with the U.S. men's national team, he's not Jossie Zardes in both the best and the worst ways. He's not a back to the defense type guy, unless he's playing a Caribbean team and then he's scoring 8 goals. Paul Ariola is going to be up there providing assistance too. And then one step further back, Paxton Pomykal and Mendy have some depth there, providing some midfield assistance. And let's talk about how this back line works. Our best fullback pairing, I have here Sealy and Tuamasi. Is that how you see things also?
I do, to an extent. I think with Tuamasi, he's I always make the comparison to like if anyone tuning in, appreciates the Premier League. I compare him to like an Aaron Wan-Bissaka in the sense that I think he's a solid, very physical defender. Is for the most part able to isolate attackers on the flank 1v1 and kind of body them off the ball and win that back. It's just his ability to push forward. Sometimes it doesn't come instinctively to him. I think he really kind of has to be coached into being that modern day outside fullback that is able to push forward and contribute to the attack effectively. But Giovanni Jesus is there, right? So I think that when he's healthy, when he comes back again, remember he had that season-ending injury in 2023. I think when he comes back, he's going to be able to kind of fill that role a little bit, and we might just see some even rotation and split time between the two. At left back, I didn't know what to expect with Sealy heading into the season. We recalled him from loan. He was at PSV for a couple seasons. We brought him back in last year, and he didn't get acclimated and jump right back into finding his form or getting his feet wet immediately. But in the preseason, especially in our last 2 matches out in Spain, he's looked really good. He's notched in goals from that position. He's been able to offer our attack more than what maybe even Farfan was able to do in short periods in 2023 as our starting left back. I think there's going to be competition on both sides, which is what I want. I think you raise the level. My biggest concern is not even the outside back position. I think it really is our 3 center backs. I think we look between Ibiaga, Junca, and Tafari, which is where I think we'll start. I think that's going to be on day one, on opening day. That's who we're going to end up starting with in the back line. I think they're athletic. They cover a lot of ground. If a ball is played over the top and we have to backtrack, they can recover quickly. And they each have their own strengths, whether physically or technically. However, I don't know if they can be leaned upon for a long period of time without getting exposed. I think there's going to be counterattacking a heavy teams who are going to be able to find those holes in our back line. And I just wonder what happens when you face that level of adversity. I haven't seen these 3 play together in this manner just yet. So I think the biggest questions are there in that 3 center back line. And that's why I believe that, Yes, getting Amit Gorka back is great. Bringing Omar Gonzalez in as a death piece is great, but we may even need one more piece that isn't necessarily an aging piece, right? A center back that is just going to be able to give us some insurance there.
Absolutely. But you guys had a great defense, and I feel like you're at a spot where you would willingly trade goals allowed for a few more goals scored. Like, if you could allow 5 or 6 more goals next year and score 10 or 12 more, you guys are going to be in a better place because of that. We've made it 30 minutes and 7 seconds into a preview about FC Dallas without talking about the goaltender position.
I know, it's crazy. Because I feel like, I mean, he's a staple, a rock in our line, right? Martin Boss, it was actually amazing to me that I believe he was like maybe a candidate for the All-State Goalkeeper of the Year. But I believe that we don't have the defensive record that we have without Martin Boss. I think he's a Dutch just dream at the end of the day. Like, I think what he's able to offer us in terms of just feeling solid was massive in 2023. But again, keep in mind, we had a 4 defender back line. We were running a traditional 4-back system in 2023. I'm hoping that the good form carries into 2024. If we do leak more goals, I don't necessarily believe it will be solely due to Martin Boss. I think it's just a brand new system that we're implementing, and there's going to be growing pains there. But I can't give this man enough flowers, man. I think he's someone that I'm very excited about. And equally, I hope continues. I think there were a couple of matches last season where he picked up a knock, picked up an injury, and we all saw the drop off, I would say, between him and someone like Jimmy Marr. So I'm hoping that we completely, avoid that scenario to an extent in 2024.
Looking ahead through the season, any random Saturday we turn on the TV, we put on an FC Dallas game. What are some storylines we should be watching week in and week out? What should we be gauging from week to week?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to look at. One is, of course, if anyone hasn't tuned into FC Dallas quite a bit up to this point, I mean, the big club record signing of Petar Musa is one that I think everyone's going to watch, because it's not just big for FC Dallas, but it's big for Major League Soccer, bringing someone of that caliber to this league. But I think a player that was this diamond in the rough last season that almost no fan really knew about, and I would say even FC Dallas fans included, unless you were tuning into MLS Next Pro, was Bernie Kamungo. I think, this is a player who has an amazing journey, right? Being his family being Tanzanian refugees, then coming into North Texas SC as an MLS Next Pro player, getting his first team shot with FC Dallas. And whether it be due to injuries or, form running out from other players, he was given his opportunity. And I want to say, I haven't checked the stats on this, but I want to say efficiency-wise, he was likely our best attacking player, efficiency-wise. For the amount of games that he played, his goal contributions and what he added to our attack far exceeds, outside of maybe Jesus Ferreira, far exceeds just about any other player on FC Dallas. And this is at a time where, again, I was being very, very critical of players like Paul Arriola. If anybody's watched me on Texas Ring of Fire or on other MLS themed shows, like, it was amazing to me that we have a DP that cannot produce. In fact, up into even past the halfway point of the season, the only goal contribution he had was an own goal at Vancouver, where we drew 1-1, and it was because of an own goal that Arriola scored. Outside of that, there wasn't much he was contributing. The 2 goals that he had last season came towards the end of the year. So it's one where a lot of our attack had a down year. We were plagued with injuries. Kamungo stepped up, and he's someone that I believe fans should be paying attention to. He's already getting, U23 call-ups now, potentially some other USMNT chatter going on between him and Tafari. I think he's a name that, if you haven't paid attention to FC Dallas up to this point, he is a storyline to follow as his game continues to progress and improve.
How long is Jesus Ferreira in Dallas?
Oh, that is a great question. You know what? This winter, I really believed the Musa deal was contingent upon the exit of Ferreira. I really felt that based on our history, we saw it with Alan Velasco, right? That was the last big money move we made, spending $8 million on Velasco to bring him to Major League Soccer. And we wouldn't have done that had we not sold Pepe, right? We kind of needed that money to bring him over. I felt that this deal was going to work out the same way. And then when the Spartak Moscow deal fell through, due to the sanctions and everything else.
Due to don't go to Moscow, Jesus Ferreira. He needs, if you think going to Moscow right now is a good career choice, you need better people in your corner.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And what's crazy about that, though, is you still have plenty of fans in the timeline, right, criticizing not just Major League Soccer, but
Major League Soccer, the MLS Gestapo's not going to let him go. Of course they're not.
Exactly, right? We're literally at war. But with that said, it's great to see the ambition. I will kind of applaud him for that. If there's anything to applaud him for in that scenario, is that, he was open to the idea. They were working out terms before MLS kind of kiboshed the deal. And so, I think, with Ferreira, I wouldn't be surprised to see him move in summer. I think he's ready for it. I think that Spartak Moscow fiasco was a signal of intent from him. I don't see him or his agent or his camp forcing a move out. I think he's totally fine, being a homegrown player, being that his dad made his name at this club. I grew up watching David Ferreira. I remember going to the 2010 MLS Cup final with Brek Shea. I think he understands what his name means here. So he's not going to force his move out, but I do believe that Ferreira will be someone that is open to the idea of finally making his move overseas and building the next chapter of his legacy as a player. And I think that FC Dallas is now finally somewhat in a position where if that were to happen, we're going to be okay. If this happened 2023, I honestly could not tell you where the goals would come from, where our offense spark is going to come from. And I was very concerned about it when he left for Gold Cup. It was a huge concern of mine. So I think now we may be in a better position to allow him to make that move without playoff implications going out the window.
Love it. Jose Tellez again from goals.tv. Thank you so much. Let us know one more time where we can find your work.
Absolutely. Guys, in all honesty, man, if you want to see anything I'm doing, more importantly, what any other solid creators like Bob himself as part of Designated Pundits, head over to goals.tv. Go check that out. If you want to follow me specifically, at It's Bromigo on Twitter, I have more than a few idiotic, dumb, hot, spicy takes that I'm sure you guys would love to engage with. So I can't just say any more than that. Thank you again for having me on the show. This is great.
Thank you for being there. And again, I'm sorry for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be spamming goals.tv, just putting up new episodes. I think we have 14 more teams after today, and we have just about 14 days to do it before the start of the Major League Soccer season. Make sure you check back each and every week. We'll be doing a recap episode and a picks and predictions episode, one of the only places on the internet where you can find human-made, not robot-made, predictions, sportsbook picks, articles out every week. Thank you guys for watching. And Jose, thank you again for joining us today.
Absolutely.